I'm Maria Schwartz, and welcome to the Winsidr Show, where it's all about the W. Mighty Mercury, from being swept out of the WNBA Finals to big name signings and taking basketball to South Dakota. The Mercury always seem to be keeping their name in the headlines. We've got lots to discuss with my guest today, Eliav Gabay. Before we get into today's show, I just want a quick reminder. Winsidr is fully independent WNBA coverage. Everything we do is supported by listeners like you. If you enjoy what we do, you can help keep it going by joining our Patreon, patreon.com/Winsidr. That's patreon.com/Winsidr. With pricing levels for everyone, you can directly support our work. We do, putting work in year round. We've also got a full team producing written coverage over at winsidr.com, plus more content than ever across TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, and YouTube. And finally, if you're in the market for WNBA gear, check the affiliate links in the show notes and on winsidr.com. You rep the league, and Winsidr gets a little support along the way. Welcome back to the show. Excited to be here with you, Eliav. Look, I always appreciate your on-court interviews. Jealous the amount of time you get with Diana Taurasi. What is going on? I guess let's talk Mercury first of all. Is it hot yet in Phoenix? Is the temperature picked up yet? Where are we at?
That's the most important question right there, honestly, because going in and out of games, it's always a mission in the summer for the W season. No, but right now it's perfect. I'm not gonna lie, right now it's perfect. This is the moment before it becomes ridiculous. So we're appreciating that it's semi-cool right now when you walk around.
Okay, so how were the finals? No, I'm just, but
Right.
I think that it didn't go too well. But you
Well,
made it to the finals. You made it to the
well,
finals.
yeah, I mean, listen, I will say a joy to be a part of. It definitely felt like that game one was, God, did that hurt, and
Mm.
and then the game two again, like these opportunities that were there, and then when you drop both of those, let alone one of those, you feel like, okay, you mean that's a series. Like you only get so many of those opportunities against a team like the Aces, against a player
Mhm.
like Asia, against a coach like Becky. You only get so many opportunities to pull one out, at their house. And when that happened, I kind of felt like, okay, it's going to be tough.
If I'm being real, I felt like there was two teams, the Mercury and the Indiana Fever. And I mean, Vegas fine. The whole season after that 50 something point loss to Minnesota just turned around. But it really felt like for the Mercury and Indiana, obviously slightly different situations. Indiana, there's been maybe I'm throwing shade, maybe I'm not, an odd amount of talk about Indiana already being a contender based on what they did last year, when only two players from last year's playoff run are actually on the roster. So to me, it means absolutely diddly. It feels like it was one of those, I don't want to say dumb luck. It was things were working and you ride that wave. And now that season and that wave is done. The Mercury, I feel like a little bit in that same element. And it felt like they caught a wave. Now, there's a big difference. The continuity, which from my understanding has been a big topic of discussion throughout this training camp. I, we can't even call it like off season really, because it was this mystery period of unknown and then just a mad dash 2 week, not even 2 weeks, like a week and a half of just the most intense thing ever. Um, but there's been a lot of talk in camp and through this period of time about continuity. Look, you have 7 players that are still, coming back. Seems to be 7 players, 6 impact players, you could say: AT, Cobb, Honor, Sammy, Mack, McConney. Um, obviously with Westbeld out, that's a huge injury just announced the other day. Sure, we can dive into more of that. But I do see that, look, there's some continuity, obviously a positive. But my sneaking suspicion is it felt like this was kind of like a wave they were riding. But at the same time, and maybe I'm just diving way too, into the deep end here, but at the same time, you got a coach doesn't have that much experience, just a couple years under the belt. You finally have kind of created a roster that fits that mindset, that fits this team. Obviously, there's going to be turnover with a double team expansion draft with 90 or 85% of the league free agents. Where do you see kind of I guess twofold. Let's start with going into whatever this period we call now camp, I guess. But
Mhm.
just like craziness of the offseason, did you expect were there surprises? Do you expect Satu dipping out? Like what was your mindset as those things kind of happened and we're sitting here now?
So when it comes to Satu specifically, um, if anyone was gonna move on from the big three, I would have guessed her if I had to guess. But I still was surprised that she actually did it because, and she talked about it. I mean, she genuinely had a good time in Phoenix. I mean, totally revived her career, totally gave her a new spark. She got to grow in so many ways that I don't think that any of us have seen yet in her career. So that was big for her. It was a surprise, however, for sure. I will say when that happened. Definitely happy for her, though. Kind of ironic that her sister obviously gets drafted away from the team that she goes to. But yeah, she was always good with us. A very talented player. For some reason, gets a lot of hate online. I
I
don't
do
really
not get it at
understand
all.
it, but she does. And I think that she's very much herself. And I'm gonna continue to, you know, cheer her on, quote unquote, as she continues to be the unicorn. Because really, I'm a fan of her game. I'm a fan of her game. Very versatile. But to put it simply, when I asked Nick Uren about it, and I asked him, is this a one for one replacement situation, or how's it going to happen? And he made it pretty clear it's going to be by committee. And you said it, and I think they're going to have to lean on it in a big way. Is that continuity? They're banking on that being a very, very big part of what carries over into this year and helps with that success. Because when it comes to the talent, it's not as it was last year on this roster. And on top of that, the size isn't there either. That was already an issue last year. Seems to be a bigger issue now, obviously, with Kat going out with a torn ACL. Hate to see that. Wishing the best for her. That's another, again, already short front court gets shorter now. So anyway, when it comes down to it, though, I do think the thing that Nick and Nate have figured out is what really works in their system and what works around the main piece, the main cog of it all, Alyssa Thomas. And as long as they can make that work, Alyssa can make a lesser team look very good. And of course, let's not forget about Kalia Copper, who did her part to take a step back in different moments. So Satu and Alyssa can, get in doctrine, can feel comfortable. And now Kalia can come back into that 24 points a game type scorer because they're going to need it.
Oh, they're most definitely going to need it. I mean, look, coming to this team, I think the thing that intrigues me, the Mercury are an intriguing team. We can't deny it. I think what they do with their overseas talent and scouting talent, also talk about size, missing size. I guess they don't call it a divorce anymore. I don't know what the proper term now is. I'm happy it's no longer called a divorce. I don't know because I think even technically, like the CBA hasn't even finally been signed. Like I'm pretty sure we're still working on we've figured out enough of it and agreed on enough of it that we can continue moving forward. But I don't think some things, and which is why there's a lot of confusion. We're seeing that in a lot of reporting. But losing Kalani Brown, um, obviously impacts that front court. Now, let's not forget what happened last season, where Kalani Brown played a little bit earlier, then kind of disappeared on the end of that bench. So it totally makes sense. But just hearing you talk about size, had to bring that up.
Yeah, for
But yeah,
sure.
the thing with this Mercury team is you add shooters, you find shooters from all over the world. And I know not just from last year, but also what's been going on this year. Um, Shout out to some people I know have been doing some scouting for the Phoenix Mercury. Um, they've really invested in their overseas scouting. They are looking to try and tap into that overseas market to find the proper players in this system to put around their stars so they can be more successful. Last year you had Laxka, excuse me. You had a few other players. Obviously, Makani comes in, turns head, is now I don't even know what level of star you want to say, but like that's a star. Like
A
however,
legit starter,
yes.
no doubt.
And just like so fun to watch. So like the excitement's there. I'm excited to see kind of some of these other players. Obviously, very biasly pro redheaded players in the league. Love, love. Love that the Mercury are looking hopefully to lock down Pretzel. Because
Yeah.
that would be amazing. 3-point shooting. I mean, for me, it's like what we're seeing in Phoenix. And I said this last year, and I'm very excited for this year too, because I feel like when you take away a superstar that needs that much ball attention and ball usage in Satu, you kind of open it more up to what I think the core of this team should have been, which is surround AT with shooters.
Mhm.
Like, just let AT cook and kick. And like she's gonna get triple doubles. If you have good shooters, yes, you're gonna live and die by the three. And we saw that last year at times. But when you have the wrecking ball attacking the basket and nobody can stop them, the defenses collapse and then you kick out. And if as long as you have good shooters, as long as Sammy continues to shoot well, McConney,
Right.
Bonner, yeah, no, please, Pretzel, anybody, like, please chime in. I just love this, it's a
No,
fun way to play.
no, absolutely. No, I was just gonna say absolutely. I mean, the thing that you lose that you excuse me, the thing that you lost with Satu, right, is because Ka had the slashing, right? She was kind of that attacker in that way. Alyssa, she's obviously running the show and the general. Satu had a little bit of that inside out presence where sometimes she went up to the post, sometimes she slashed, sometimes, she went crazy from three at different games. So when I think about how you work with what's new now is I love that they brought in AI. Love that. A former teammate of Alyssa Thomas, so familiar with her game, obviously a champion, Olympic medalist. When we talk about, I mean, they're paying her 500K, right? So it's like, if you're talking about who you want to bring in to somewhat be in that spot, that's who you're talking about. So I agree with you. You're always going to give yourself a chance as long as the defense is going to be solid. We know that. And we know that organizationally, they very much value possessions, very, very high on possessions, that extra effort to the possessions. That's another thing that we get with a lot of these, European overseas players is that they're coming in with their lunch pail and their hard hat on, and that's the element that I think won the Mercury a lot of inches last year, if I could put it that way, and then in turn won them a lot of those close games.
Mhm.
So that's what I expect to see more of. But absolutely, it's been pretty interesting and kind of miraculous to see the way they've just bought in to this overseas mentality 1,000,000%. I mean, most of the free agents, most of the draft picks, I'm pretty sure actually each draft pick last this year was French. So it's quite a sight when you think about more teams could do this to this level, but the Mercury are almost getting ahead of it.
Oh, 100%. And like that's what you need to do in a league that, as we were talking about before we got on air, is expanding not just roster spots but positions because teams are expanding. You're gonna need look, as the drafts go on, you're gonna have to keep going back to that overseas well to bring back the water because you're gonna be locking down Alyssa Thomas. You're gonna be locking down, Kalia Copper. And so those other players, those, the icings on the cake, the role players that fit in so well are the players that are going to get snatched up, especially when they have a great season. And so it's going to get harder and harder and harder. And so yes, the teams I've been yelling this from the mountaintop. Only some people listen to me. Other people think I'm just an old man waving or raising my fist at cloud. Um, but no, like the teams that are investing in overseas scouting, and that stuff are going to find success. And I love that part you mentioned about the lunch pail and the hard hat because look, we're coming from this from an American perspective of being an American, watching the growth of the W and watching the growth of women's basketball in a world where sports dominates the world in America. Right? It's all over the news. It's all over TV. March Madness companies give you breaks during the day to watch March Madness games because your boss was a huge Michigan fan or went to the Ohio State or UConn or whatever it is. Like that's not a common thing in other places in the world. And while the money in the W is big enough and eye opening and kind of jaw dropping to some of these overseas players uh, to be enticed to come to the W, they're coming with a different mentality. And I think often, especially with these younger players, these younger overseas players who are coming with this mentality of, I'm coming to America. I'm going to make a fair amount of money, but this is my opportunity to kind of cement myself, make a name for myself in America, which then around the world, back to Europe, back to overseas, can make me a ton more money, possibly, make me a face of an American franchise, something like that. But yeah, another player, like, look, we had her on the show, so I'm obviously biased, Yardain Garzon. Now I'm fully well aware that I'm jinxing her right now, and she's been injured for both, I believe, for the
Yeah.
first one, and now also for this. We're recording now. The game against the Japanese team is about to happen. She is still out with shoulder injury. I anticipate she gets cut unless, like, from my perspective, and we were talking about this off air also, Garzon's a fun player for me. One, I love shedding a light, showing love to the lesser known players, getting their chances. She has an amazing 3-point shot, which I think really fits to this team. When she didn't go drafted, seeing her sign here, I thought that was like, oh, that's a nice fit. I could see her actually getting a
Yeah.
spot there. Kind of sucks that she's been hurt, not getting opportunity to perform. I don't know what that means in terms of what the coaching staff has seen from her in practice versus not being ready to go in a game. But she hasn't been cut yet. Probably will be cut by the time this goes live. But talk to me about, like, other players. You brought up talk to me about other players and kind of anything else that's kind of popped out in your mind. Cause like we said before, right? We're talking about AT, Sammy, Mac. Other than that, we got McConney and Bonner, and then Westbeld's hurt. If we're talking about continuity, we can assume Keanu Williams is coming back. Who else is there?
Yes. Keanu Williams for sure. I would say, you mentioned her earlier, Pretchel, definitely, and then also Aileen, like, definitely two options because of the size element. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I'm not gonna act like I have all these statistics about anything besides that, man. Besides that, like, at this point in time, last year, for me, all I could think about, dude, there's no point guard on this team. There's no point guard on this roster. Like, what? Like, that's all I could think about, And even though, yes, Alyssa Thomas is that, but we have seen often where a player is tasked with too much with no help. And we saw it throughout the year last year, too, where there were moments where I'm like, when Alyssa gets off the court, there's nothing going on anymore. Like, and there's no, so that was my main thing last year. I was shouting it, like you were saying, through the mountaintops. Nobody was probably listening, but I was saying it. And then obviously it worked out because they landed on Akoa McConney. I mean, wow, what a big pick. And then also, let's not forget about Lexi Held, who definitely did a lot for them before she got hurt with that collapsed lung. So this year, on the opposite side, it's the bigs. I can't stop thinking about how troubling that is. Natasha Mack, I think she is an elite backup center. I think she's an elite backup center. I don't think that she, as at this point yet, an elite starting center yet. And I think she would be so much to deal with if you get her in a second unit situation. In this unit, she's effective and she's a good player, 100%, a very good player who's earned her keep in this league, 1,000,000%. But if I'm talking about championship level, a player like that should be coming off the bench, in my opinion. So that's where the size is. Anyone who's in camp that has any size is going to get extra eyes from me this year.
No, I mean, what you're saying is essentially the Kia Stokes issue over in Vegas of, like, this player is good enough to be on a roster. No one's questioning that. No one's trying to throw shade. Really great on a second tier when like you have a higher expectation and weight to be lifted by your starting five. And if your individual five players cannot individually carry their own weight, it slowly starts to be passed on to others. Now, Alyssa Thomas historically carries the weight of like 15 teams on her back
Right.
every single game. Okay, so we kind of talked about this. What are your expectations? I'm curious. I don't want to like pair it too much to last year to this year, but like, what are your season expectations? Like, what do you think the ceiling and the floor is? Obviously, I think, I mean, I'll say it. I think you're crazy to not say like the ceiling is another finals run. Just in the sense of like, okay, you look around the league, they're a top 4 team or definitely a top 5 team. You can make like, obviously we know Vegas and New York are going to be slotted as the top teams going into the season. People are going to make their arguments for Atlanta. People are going to make their arguments for Phoenix. People are going to make their arguments for Indiana. I feel like pretty much those are the teams that are going to get the real arguments. Everybody else is like, yes, they could, but
Yeah, maybe
um,
Minnesota could get some a little bit, maybe.
you're being nice to me because I'm from Minnesota, but I don't think get in trouble. No, um, no. I mean, look, maybe late in the season, something like Minnesota's going to be a playoff team. I don't think they're going
Depends
to be
on
going
Mila's.
into it.
Right,
Yes,
depends on how she developed, but, like, oh, man, with next to her, with Courtney and then also the feast, I mean, like, you never know, right? But no, but, yes, to answer your question, I will say that I don't believe the ceiling is the finals this year. I do believe it's probably the semi. Um, when I just think about what it took to beat the Liberty last year, and I just it's hard. Listen, I'll put this disclaimer, okay, to that being at the ceiling. And of course, making the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs, it's a failure for sure.
yeah,
Now the disclaimer is we just talked about 7 players we haven't seen, right? So I don't know. And even when we get in there for training camp, we don't really see it too much besides shooting drills right now. So
mhm.
I'm very excited. As we record this, gonna see them against Japan after this, so that's gonna be telling. At home, all that good stuff. Obviously, it was nice to see Keanu Williams against the Sky do work, and Kalia do her thing as well. Alyssa didn't really, she didn't really play her load at all. So I don't really want to think about that too much. But yeah, I think there's the asterisks of like I'm really excited to see Ayayi. I'm really excited to see how she looks next to Alyssa, next in this system. Excited to see. At the end of the day, last year, if you would have asked me beforehand, I wouldn't have told you they're making the WNBA final. Listen, that's actually, I have this. I have this recorded where I did say they could make the WNBA finals, and anything less, like they should expect playoffs for sure. So I do
Yeah,
actually have that on record. But that like I'm less confident this year than last. If that tells you anything, and
yeah.
but to that end, I still don't think I expected what we saw from a lot of those players that we didn't know about. So that's why this year I'm reserving some of that until we get to see how maybe the shooters look so good around Alyssa that it just doesn't matter. You
Hmm.
know, maybe
Hmm.
maybe she attracts so much attention and Kalia does enough that just having those shooters around them is enough for the offense to be so good, and then Alyssa's defense as an anchor, and maybe it just works. But I just don't know if they can make it past the second round this year.
I think, we brought up Minnesota. Obviously, in Minnesota, a lot of things turn into Minnesota in my mind. But it reminds me kind of 2 years ago where Minnesota made that deep playoff run, go to the finals, 5 seconds away from winning the finals against New York. Some say Rob, some say not,
Woo!
whatever.
That was a
Um,
tough one. That was a tough one.
and the next year, the continuity came back, and the question going into it was kind of like, is this team for real or was that a fluke last year? And then we saw them kind of run through it. And I would not be, that's kind of where I'm at with this Phoenix team of like, we saw them have great success last year. Now's when we find out if that was riding the wave in a fluke or if this is set and what they can do now that they have time together. Because going into last year, my biggest question was not like anything about anything other than this is a hodgepodge, not a hodgepodge, but this is like a random group of people put together who's never played together besides a couple of them. And like, now let's make a team and go do something. And they gelled together well and like things worked out. But at the same time, it very much felt like a roster made it almost felt like an expansion team where this roster was like made that day and then we're going to work it through. Now there's that continuity. I want to give some shout out real quick to the Phoenix Mercury as a franchise organization because what I saw them do, obviously I was not there in South Dakota. I wish I was,
Oh,
but what I saw
yes.
them do, and they should have done it at the Corn Palace. I'm just going to say that. If you're a South Dakota person, you know what I'm talking about. The game should have been played at the Corn Palace. But the way they made that place home was so cool. I have so much respect. I have a lot of hate and displeasure for NBA owners who also own WNBA teams. But I also want to give love when people do things the right way. And what they did in South Dakota was done the right way. We've seen a lot of other teams travel and do preseason games in different places, and they didn't do it like the Phoenix Mercury. And the other thing I want to talk about real quick, what are your thoughts on those throwback jerseys? Because literally, first of all, do I have my? Oh yeah, baby. Gotta have. I mean, this isn't the one. This is the one that the account got in an argument with the fan about, because this is an
Yes.
original Diana Taurasi, not the original jersey. I am so obsessed that they're bringing back the greatest jersey in WNBA history, the original Phoenix Mercury jersey. How hyped are you about that? Yeah, what are your thoughts about the throwbacks?
I mean, I'm a throwback guy through and through. Like I'm all about the throwbacks. You know, I thought it was funny seeing Diana watch the video and say, "Oh man, I guess they are throwbacks now, huh?" Like she's like, "I guess we are at that point, huh?" I'm like, yeah, yeah, we really are. So yeah, it's always cool to see a throwback modernized. You know, listen, when I saw the new logo and stuff, I didn't really understand all the hate. I'm not saying it's like a whoa, what a crazy logo. Like I thought it was a cool logo, but I also thought it was like it's nice. Like it wasn't like how this is so bad or this is so good. I was like, cool. Like, like
Yeah.
30 years, sure.
They needed a rebrand. Like they're using the same like wording from the original. Like, come on now, they need to
But
do
even
something.
though the one thing I will say, and this is just me with jerseys, if I open this closet, you're just going to see tons of jerseys, right? So I'm a big jersey guy. The one thing that I don't love, and this goes, I've seen this on NBA jerseys as well, is this like other colored part right here on the shoulder that makes it feel like a practice jersey. You know what I'm talking about? When it's just like this one piece here that all of a sudden
panel.
It's where all of a sudden it's not. It feels again more like a practice jersey than like a game jersey. So that's my one little thing, but that's such a specific personal preference thing, as far as the color and the modernization of the logo and all those things. Listen, no one's gonna like change, very rarely. So they're just gonna have to get used to it a little bit. But as we've seen, look, the retros are going to be coming every single year. I do think, though, that last year they really nailed a lot of the colorways. They really did.
Yeah, I like, what is it? The one that's like the map of the state with the ball that says Merc. I'm a fan of that logo. Anytime you bring back a throwback, I mean, especially because for me, like Reebok did an amazing job. Was it Reebok? Yeah, it was Reebok. The originals were Reebok.
Yeah.
And they did an amazing job. Once the league moved over to Adidas, the jerseys just went in the tank. And then we had, the cookie cutters for a while, which were just ugly. Then Nike came and did the cookie cutters, which were just ugly. And now, if I'm being honest, Nike's been like phoning it in. We see what Nike does.
I liked them a couple years ago. I like the revamp.
No, look. I like some of them. I think I like some of them. My problem is that, like, when we look at the women's professional soccer league, they're experimenting. They're trying new things. They're trying to make them fashionable and cool and hip. Whereas I don't see that as much on the W side. With the Mercury's rebrand, I loved those, like, I don't even know what you call it. It was like the Aura ones that like changed whatever. Loved those. Sad to see those go. Honestly, in the expansion, or not the expansion, the preseason game recently, I think it was South Dakota one. They were wearing the white jerseys. I think I didn't think they looked cool when I saw the rendering and the photos, but seeing them in game, I was like, oh, okay, those look cool. I'm down with those.
You're right. You're right. That's different. Yeah. I haven't seen it yet. Like I want to see them. I really do. That's true. I haven't seen them like really yet. So that'll be a different.
I think that's definitely an underrated aspect where like some people are like, oh, I dislike this or I like, but it's like once you see it play, it looks different. Like there's some jerseys that I hate that. And then you see it playing, you're like, okay, that looks cool on the court. So I get that. Granted, I don't think Nike's taking renderings and like bringing it on the court to test them out. Whatever.
Yeah.
You know me. I like to hate. Okay, well, Eliav, I'm very appreciative of your time. I'm sure we'll be chatting more Mercury at some point. Remind the folks where they can find your work.
Of course, all social media at Eliav Gabay, ELIAVGABAY, and sports360az.com.
To close out this episode, I just want to say thank you, Eliav, but also thank you to our listeners for supporting independent WNBA coverage. Winsidr has been doing this for a while, and it only works because of the community like you. Thank you.